Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome here live on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, wherever you might be joining us on one of our social feeds. We appreciate it. Maybe you're listening to this a day or two later, audio-wise on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. We greatly appreciate it. Make sure you are following or liking or subscribing or whatever little thing that you need to do there. And maybe, just maybe, tell a friend about this here little podcast. We would appreciate it. Joining me to chop up about sports, not football. So you'll notice we're missing one box. We'll get to that here in just a minute. But the executive producer of this podcast, of course, is always here. My right-hand man. He's ready to chop up a couple of non-sports topics before he then hosts the fast break at the end of this podcast. It's James Thomas Jamriska. Jimmy, hello.
I am so excited to be on a show where we're not going to talk the 49ers all throughout the show. It's great. I can't wait.
It is exciting. It is exciting. And joining us, as always, my guy, the old man, formerly of Pittsburgh, formerly of North Carolina, now back home in his Hoosier state. I guess there was a sojourn in Georgia as well, wasn't there, Chris? Chris King. Chris, hello.
Georgia, Oregon, Washington State, Tennessee for a little bit, New York for a little bit. So, yeah. Oh, Rhode Island. So,
he's well traveled and he has more years on the planet than Jimmy and I. So, you can see how he's been able to pull this off. How are you doing this evening? You ready to chop up some non-football? Or are you sad that we don't have Williams to lean on for football thoughts here?
I am going to miss the occasional ref stat that he would grace us with. Not to mention, you want to talk about somebody with a winning percentage on this podcast, like it's Williams, all right? 3 years in a row of like about 60%. That's good.
Well, listen, Williams will be joining us, I imagine, for the NFL draft, right? He is also a big fan of college basketball. We'll get him back for that. We'll have our guy Matt Roberts coming on talking about some Masters. So we'll have plenty of things that we can keep up with other than just basketball, maybe even baseball. We'll see. We'll see what kind of mood strikes me on certain days for this to be brought up. But I guess spring training is around the corner. But one non-basketball thing I wanted to bring up here real quick before we throw it to Jimmy to run us on the fast break, which will probably be closer to 20 to 25 minutes now. We're not looking to get in under 15, but we'll get there in a second. I had this thought, this epiphany, and then I've heard it starting to float around to some of the podcasts. I've seen it online. And Jimmy, I think I know what the man joining us thoughts are going to be. So I'm going to throw it to you first, and then he'll go on the other side of us. But if you're the San Francisco 49ers,
of course, we're talking 49ers.
I know you said that. But if you're them, don't you make the Godfather offer to one William Belichick to be a 1-year defensive coordinator, $10 million? Boom. Bill, you got the private jet. You show up to work Tuesday through Friday. You go home. Meet us wherever game day is Sunday morning. 1 year, Belichick. What do you think, Jimmy?
Wow. 10,000 feet view, an amazing idea. One-on-one view, interesting. How are you as Kyle Shanahan going to get up in front of a group of 100 men at the beginning of training camp and just have the room when everyone's looking to your right and a guy sitting down in the first row is Bill Belichick? That would be tough. That would have to be some ego checking at the door. And let me tell you, there's a lot of ego between those two people. That's the only thing that scares me about that. I like it in theory because it gives Belichick something to prove. He can maybe just do the defense, get paid, and get a Super Bowl that way. But I don't know. That's tough.
I hadn't thought about that angle, Jimmy, that like, even if they did win a Super Bowl too, all of a sudden Shanahan's not going to get full credit for it, right? He had to get Belichick on.
Is he looking over his shoulder then? I mean, is he looking over his shoulder the whole season, even though he's done real well?
I didn't even think about that. But Chris, I'm going to come to you on that. How crazy do you think my idea is there for the 49ers to bring in Bill Belichick?
Rod, you know that I'm a fan, right? And I'm a fan of two teams, the Colts and the Cowboys. So that means I do not want to see anything good happen to Bill Belichick or the San Francisco 49ers. Therefore, I think this would be a terrible idea. But on the other hand, I will say this. If he were to go to San Francisco and they were to win a Super Bowl, that would just further my theory that he's not that great of a head coach.
Oh, somehow I knew you would take
The
it
best
there.
coach ever is not that great of a head coach. I love you, Chris. You're consistent, man.
Somehow I knew you would take it there. I really think Belichick should consider it, right? Of course, this is crazy and it's probably not going to happen, but I really think Belichick should consider it because you don't want to sit out an entire year. You don't want to just be an old guy who's been a year away from football, who's just really anxious to try to break the record. You'd like to try to stay somehow involved. And I just don't get the feeling, Jimmy, that he wants to sit around with a bunch of media types talking football because he hasn't really shown us any evidence of that during his whole entire career.
So, real quick before I get into that, if you are watching or listening live right now on Facebook, X, or YouTube, throw a question in the comments. Do you think Bill Belichick would fit in San Francisco as their defensive coordinator, like my good colleague Rod does here? I think that he loves talking football. I think he loves interacting with football. So, I think he would be okay on that end because he's not the coach anymore, so he can just talk and say what he wants. However, that itch has got to still be there for him because he's still, he can get the all-time record. So I believe
He
that this
still
would be a
wants to
nice
talk
bridge.
football. He
It'd
still
be a
wants
nice
to talk
bridge.
football because he just started a camp at Nebraska. Matt Rule got him to come in here, and they're selling tickets at $50 a head for this football camp. So he's already started to try to keep talking football and keep involved.
Oh
You
no,
know,
the paid speaker tour. Belichick, come on. You still got some football left in you. You don't got to go to the paid speaker tour just yet. Goodness.
Maybe. Never know. Never know.
And again, I don't know if I'm like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna cough up $50 to go hear Bill Belichick give a talk. Like again, I don't have any evidence that that's gonna be a wonderful, entertaining experience. But that's my non-basketball thought for the week. I'll throw it over to Mr. Jamriska. Do you have a non-basketball thought of the week now that football's over?
I do. We're going to try something we haven't done before. We're going to do a little visual aid, little show and tell. I'm going to see if this works. Hopefully it does, because it's going to be pretty sweet here. Let's see here. Yes, here we go. We have the new MLB jerseys, and these have been going very poorly for Major League Baseball. Chris, what do you notice about the jerseys?
I mean, I see belt buckles. I'm not really looking at the jersey, I don't think.
Yeah, see, the pants are see-through.
I think I'm pretty sure I could see the outline of Shohei's underwear here.
Yeah, they're having a lot of problems right now. And for those of you listening on the podcast, we're showing Shohei Ohtani in his nice, beautiful white Dodger white and blue, but you can see his shirt tucked in, I believe, in his pants. Even the gray ones we see on the Dodgers, you can see the shirt tucked in. The Mariners are pretty bad, and so are
Who's
the
this
Angels.
on, Jimmy? Who's this on? Who's the new uniform maker? Oh, I guess I see the Nike swoosh there.
So this is Fanatics making Nike, and they used a different material this year than they have in the past. It's a little bit more of their it's more athletic material. It's a lighter weight, but with lighter weight comes not as much,
So wait a minute. You're going to get mad at me for going old here, but this is literally like a George Costanza situation when he was the traveling secretary for the New York Yankees and he had him switch up the uniforms. It went well for a second.
Cotton. Yeah, but then it rained and everything went wrong. And as you can see here on the next slide in my PowerPoint presentation, the jersey names and numbers are a lot different, a lot smaller. They don't, this new material, Chris, it's so I know people where you come from, it's cotton, whole thing. But this new material is so lightweight that they can't have big name letters for the names because it could ruin it. So as you can see, we have a Mariners jersey on the left. Number 36, Gilbert was last year's. On the right, Kirby, number 68, is this year's. A lot different, and it looks a little cheaper, don't you think, Chris?
Everything about what I've seen so far screams cheaper. But I have a couple questions. One, how in the world did these baseball players' PR teams allow them to be photographed like this? Two,
it's fantastic.
What type of photographer would still continue to take these photos, even though they're seeing what we see here? Third, how would the MLB then see these pictures and be like, okay, these are good for the public, send them out?
Well, but they're in spring training now. We have spring training games going on, and they're playing in these. People can see them for themselves. It's not a good look for the MLB. And Rod, I know
That
is
just brings up question 4. Why in the world would you have them trot out on the field in these things?
as a Laps fan, Rod, this has got to show you that MLB is not on the uptick. It's going down, and there are still like 5 major free agents, all by Scott Boras, still available, and we got spring training going on.
Isn't one of them? Isn't one of them Bellinger? Isn't he still
Yep,
not signed with? Yeah, yeah. Didn't somebody come on here and say let's slow down on Tom Ricketts just forking a bunch of money over and bringing a bunch of players out of the Cubs? Didn't somebody?
No, they
come on
brought
this
in
podcast?
they brought in Ohtani. They brought in 2 major pitchers. Rod, you watch yourself.
Okay, I'm just trying to refresh my memory there. Here, my thought actually on this, because I'm not a huge baseball guy, is I don't think this is a great look for Fanatics, and I also don't think it's a great look for Nike, because Nike, why are you outsourcing to Fanatics? You can't make baseball jerseys yourself anymore, and Fanatics, you kind of have a reputation as being cheap knockoffs, and now basically we have a news story that screams nothing but that. So somebody better do something. Rob Manfred, get on that.
You know what we better do, Rod? We better do the fast break. Or so minutes in the NBA. I'm Jimmy Rod and Chris are here. Thank you very much for listening and watching live via YouTube, X, and Facebook. If you have any questions, comments, throw them in the chat. Were you able to go to All-Star Weekend like some of the people on this panel were? But first of all, Chris King, the good thing about Bloomington, Indiana, is it's within basically 5 hours of anywhere else in Indiana. So if you happen to move back from, I don't know, an East Coast state to somewhere in Indiana, you can theoretically either get there in 5 hours by car or 3 days by horse. Chris King decided to make the trek to Assembly Hall for the first time in how long, Chris?
Since I think it was 2015.
Since 2015. My math says that's about 9 years ago. Chris, you picked a hell of a game to go to, bud.
Oh, listen, there was 5 to 7 minutes of real excitement in that arena.
And then the game started.
That was in the second half, beginning of the second half. We made a real good, 5 to 7 minutes of actual team basketball. That was great. That stopped. It was over. It was just it's a rough season for us IU fans. I'm going to leave it at that. There's some things I want to say, but I'm going to wait.
Okay, well, I want to hear some things from you because as someone who works at Indiana University, I've been to Assembly Hall, I think once. Fire Woodson is someone just threw up Fire Woodson. That's kind of where I want to go here. Corey Nance, the most positive fan we have all the time. If you want positive energy, Corey Nance is the man. Corey, we do love you and we appreciate you listening. He is our number one fan for sure. A lot of criticism coming down on Coach Woodson. Do you blame him? Are you going to be that person who blames the NIL? Who are you going to blame? And then we'll go to Rod after that.
For one, I think there is a lot of blame to go around. I think it falls on a lot of different people, including Mike Woodson, and possibly even the whole athletic department as a whole on the men's side of basketball. But there is talent on this team. We just haven't seen it yet. We've seen just glimpses. We haven't seen any kind of cohesion. We haven't seen any type of real work. Like everyone at the beginning of the year saw some of these issues that we were going to have. Rebounding, free throws. Has there been any type of work that's been done to increase our chances at those situations? I don't think so, because we continue to miss free throws. We continue to not rebound or take care of the ball like that, top to the bottom. But as a head coach, you need to see these things, address them, and make them better. And that hasn't happened.
Rod, you are a Hoosier fan. Where are you on this current roster?
I got to admit, I don't know much about the current roster other than their struggles I've seen from a distance. But my thought on this from a 10,000-foot view here is I'm not sure how much we can hold Mike Woodson accountable here, because I remember Woody kind of came in under the vise of, I'm an overseer here. You know what I mean? Like, I'm an alumni. I know a little bit about the NBA, right? There's going to be other assistants that are going to be younger, and there's going to be other guys that are going to do a lot of this stuff for me. And I'm just coming back to kind of restore some of the old IU glory. So and then assistant coaches have been drained away, and I don't want to blame NIL here because that's just the world everybody's going to have to live in, but Woody seems to be a trend like so much else in America, just old guys, right? Just old guys. We just got old guys everywhere. You know what I mean? Like, they're casting older guys in leading roles in Hollywood movies. We got the oldest guys ever in the history of the world running for president, right? Bruce Bochy just won a World Series last year. He's an old guy. Andy Reid's up there in years. He just won his third Super Bowl.
Chris is an old guy. Yep, I get it.
Guy.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was my main thought, is that I don't know how much we want to blame Woodson, because I thought we were sold somebody who was going to be kind of hands off and just an overseer, and a lot of other people were going to be pressing the buttons.
Yeah, and that's kind of true, Rod, but he hasn't replaced those assistants that he brought in originally that were probably set up for us to be successful. But as the head coach, the overseer, you should be bringing in the right people to follow up. And maybe that hasn't happened either.
So, Chris, I before we get off of IU, I just want to talk to me about going back into Assembly Hall for the first time in almost a decade. When you walk through, you saw the court. What's changed? What's the same?
Okay. So something that was new that I hadn't seen before were definitely the statues on the south end of the south entrance there. That was a really cool entrance, done beautifully. I liked every bit of that. One of the things that has also changed is the boxes on the west end, and they moved those banners, like the Big Ten championship banners, and up. They moved them up. Those were the biggest things I noticed. Next to, there was a whole lot of empty seats at an IU game. We got these tickets the day before for $5 a piece.
That's not good. Not ideal, especially when tonight they sold out for the women's game. Now, granted, it was against Iowa, and granted, IU's a lot better on the women's side than the men's side, and granted, they're going to win tonight, I think. But as an IU fan, that's got to hurt you then.
I mean, it was a little bit disappointing, but I will say during that second half run, that Assembly Hall was just as loud as what I remember it. We could still just get just as rowdy. But it was a little bit disheartening to see so many empty seats on the main level. You're always going to see some in the balcony, but on that main level, there was just way too many. I was a little bit sad.
Are we going to need to go? I mean, we're going to need to go to a tarp situation, kind of like a tarp they had thrown up in Lucas Oil Stadium for All-Star Saturday night.
No. And listen, when I'm saying there was a little bit of empty seats, for most other colleges across the country, that's a packed house. All right, because I've been to some other stadiums. I've gone to see Georgia Tech play at Georgia Tech, and that was an ACC game that was a pretty important game, and that place was probably half to 60% empty. All right.
I love that he lived in North Carolina for a bunch of years, Jimmy. And we didn't get Duke, we didn't get NC State, we didn't get North Carolina. He goes all the way back to his Georgia Tech days.
Well, listen.
First of all, he cannot go to Duke. I don't care. Chris, I'm with you on that.
Right. I'm not a North Carolina fan either. I mean, that's fine. So instead of 17,800 people, there was probably 14,000 to 13,000. So not packed. Just, I'm used to going every year, all the home games packed, no empty seats. You never see 3 or 4 seats in a row empty, and I did.
Well, apparently now, if you want to make that trek every week, you can go back to Bloomington for pretty cheap and relive some glory days. So thanks for that, Chris. Really appreciate that. But let's get to the main event here. We had All-Star Weekend in Indianapolis on the worst weather Friday, Saturday we have had all year, and I'm thinking 365 days, not 2024. It just so happened there was a nice 4-inch blizzard that we had on Friday to Saturday. And then Saturday was very cold. So thanks, Mother Nature, on that one. But Rod, I know you were so pumped. It was a birthday weekend for you. How was your All-Star weekend experience?
I believe, Jimmy, you can go even longer than 365 days. I believe one Brian Wilkes of Fox 59 Weather there in Indianapolis said that was the most snow they'd had in the Circle City in about 2.5 years. So
awesome. Good work.
Yeah, we drove down in the afternoon on Friday. It was already beginning, but we kind of were ahead of the worst of it. The anonymous gambler, formerly Josh Williams, our guy, the handicapper, he rolled down in the thick of the storm. Our guy Chris, he got delayed because of the storm, and we didn't catch him until Saturday afternoon. And then we broke off. A couple people chose not to go to All-Star Saturday night, and then I was lucky enough with the Mrs. Morgan, and our guy Dax to get into Lucas Oil Stadium. So I don't want to say the cold was the main takeaway, but it kind of was, Jimmy. I mean, because you walk up and down the streets that they had, planned and all this stuff that was going to go on, and there just weren't people there, and everywhere you went inside was just overpacked, and people had coats everywhere. And so it's just like, I don't feel like Indianapolis got the chance to shine because of the weather. And you hate blaming it on Mother Nature, but it is a big factor because NBA reporters said nothing but how cold it was.
Yeah, and I really hate that because we hosted the Super Bowl and it was like the perfect weekend and everything was terrific for that. And just it's going to happen if you're in a Midwest city like that. Chris, how did you enjoy your experience downtown Indy?
Let me tell you, it's been a long time since I've been there. We did get to go to one of my old haunts from way back in the day, the Slippery Noodle. It was a blast from the past. I enjoyed myself. Listen, it was such a great time. The people of Indianapolis were so nice. They were giving starries out to everybody.
Oh, wonderful. I'm glad everyone was getting a starry. No, it's Sierra Mist. Calm down. All right, starry. It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. If you were able to watch and or go down to Indy, let us know in the chat how your experience was. Rod, I want to talk about Lucas Oil for the experience that you had on Saturday night. Obviously, there wasn't a basketball game going on that you saw, but you did see a lot going on there. Was it conducive to basketball, how they had it tarped off? Where were you sitting? And do you feel like you got a good experience there? Do you feel that the players got a good experience in Lucas Oil?
It's tough to say what the players got down there. I mean, Steph Curry and Sabrina certainly made a whole bunch of threes, so the sidelines must not have been too bad, right? But I mean, the tarp, right? It was kind of visible there, like just one whole side of the stadium, right? Like if you're looking at the stadium this way, one whole side of the stadium is basically tarped off, and then we're in the upper deck, but a front row of the upper deck. And we kind of got a view of the whole entire court. We're not looking at it from mid-court. We're looking at it from the end, down to another sideline. And then they happen to be doing the majority of the stuff on the basket further away from us. But it was still cool because of the LED court, all right? You could look down at the court and actually see things that were happening there. And because the LED court was lighting up and telling you things and having cool flame emojis that would come out of nowhere and little directions that were telling you where to go and countdowns of how many points teams were scoring, you didn't always look up at the big jumbotron. So I thought that was kind of cool. And then the fact that it wasn't a basketball game, you were able to focus in a little bit more, even being far away from Lucas Oil. But you could see how it was certainly was dead in there energy wise because it was such a big cavernous place and it wasn't filled up.
Because it's interesting because you can't do it. You can't do an all-star game in Lucas Oil Stadium just as the stadium is because there's 60,000 people that can be in there. And the basketball court itself is basically from the 35-yard line to the 35-yard line over the helmet, okay? So that is such a small area that it really would not be conducive to have it all open there. But it does. It's weird because it while it's not a cheap feel, it kind of feels not right. That LED court was the talk of everybody. Do you think that is something that they're going to use in regular season games moving forward, more for your halftime and pregame entertainment than the actual game itself?
I think the only problem with it is what we saw with the refs in the 3-point contest not being able to say that Karl Anthony Towns was over, and then Damian Lillard saying at the end of it that he wasn't entirely sure where the line was because he couldn't see it anyway.
Interesting. Okay.
I think we have to think about it that way. The players still need to be able to see, the sidelines and the 3-pointers. But I'm with you. I mean, if stuff could come up on that court during timeouts and halftime and things of that nature, but I certainly wouldn't be for the NBA jamification of, and guys start, getting fire emojis under their feet when they hit a couple shots in a row. I don't think we need to do that. Let's have a 50-50 raffle next. Oh, wait, they already do that.
Hey, Chris, the 3-point line is something that they came up with where if you shoot behind it, you get 3 points instead of 2 points for the basket.
Ruined basketball.
Speaking of NBA Jam, how was your NBA Jam record, Chris? At Dax's house, there was a big NBA Jam tournament contest machine. How'd you do, and why did you lose so badly?
I, for the life of me, could not beat Roberts. It pains me to admit that. I know Roberts is going to listen to this and just be smiling, laughing at my misery. But I did beat Rod.
Oh, on the electronic?
Yeah, on
machine. You beat Rod.
Flashing pictures and everything.
He did. Yeah. No, listen, I picked a bad shooter for that game because I frankly, I've talked about this before, I believe. I just shoot threes on NBA Jam. I actually never, ever try to go in and dunk it the way that the game was designed to do. And I picked a bad shooter, and it burned me. And Chris got me by a couple points there at the end, and it was shameful. And I didn't play NBA Jam the rest of the weekend after that happened.
Speaking of burning people, we're going to talk about some of the activities on All-Star Saturday night, but I think Rod wants to talk about something else here just in a second.
Have to do something about this situation. The momentum is dying. I don't understand no more distractions, but I do believe we should all follow one path in life. Hubris and ego and pride. Sorry, all that was a complete lie.
I love that part. Go ahead, Rod. Rod is so mad, as always, doesn't take his microphone off.
I know. I got to get better at that. The talk out of All-Star is not good for the NBA, right? It also doesn't help them that there's a complete sports vacuum that then's created after the All-Star game is over because football is already over and done with, and baseball isn't quite up and running, and who really cares about college basketball anymore? So all people can do is complain about All-Star weekend. So I'm not going to complain about All-Star weekend on a whole because I don't want to be part of the chorus that will bring about change. I don't think there needs to be change made to All-Star weekend. I think we need to figure out a way to change some of the participants. And here we go with Rod Damnation for Anthony Edwards, Mr. Minnesota, Mr. Everybody Loves Him, Mr. Gregarious, Mr. I was in an Adam Sandler movie. Good, great, grand, wonderful for you. Here's the thing, my guy. Nobody's forcing you to be in the skills competition. You don't want to be in the skills competition, you tell him you don't want to be in the skills competition. The worst thing you can do is get down to All-Star, tell everybody it doesn't matter, go out for the skills competition and shoot with your left hand and proceed to throw 2 balls off the side of the backboard. You're supposed to be an All-Star, my guy, and your first 2 shots in the competition on national TV went off the side of the backboard. How many people watching that knew you're not left-handed, Anthony Edwards? Probably not as many as you wish they did. So you just look like a fool. And guess what else? You might not care about it, but there were other guys on your team that may have cared a little bit. And Victor Wembanyama let you know at the end of it during your interview when you're laughing and joking because it doesn't matter because you come from AAU culture where there's another game later and you're just going to stop at the Taco Bell between hand. He said, you know what else is cool? Winning. So we need to get guys that want to participate. We need to get NBA players that want to participate because I got a feeling this is going to come up when we talk about the other event on All-Star weekend. But we need to get guys that want to participate. So Karl Anthony Towns, I don't laugh at you, my guy. You went out there and tried a little bit. You played a little bit of defense. You scored over 50 points. You were putting in effort and breaking a sweat in the All-Star game. Your teammate, Anthony Edwards, you should have talked to him about not looking like a fool on Shooting Stars night.
Chris King, I bet you when Victor Wembanyama said that, you went out and bought him a jersey, didn't you?
I did not buy a Victor jersey, but that's the kind of thing you want to see.
That's Chris King all over. Yeah, I like it.
I want to see somebody who wants to win. And if I'm a Spurs fan, that's exactly what you want to see too. You want to see him not backing down.
Yeah.
And I agree with Rod. You got to take it seriously. If you want the fans to be involved and take you seriously, you got to take these types of things seriously.
Okay. So let's get to the slam dunk contest. And shocking, I think Nance and Rod are going to disagree on something here, but Corey Nance throws in the chat, fire Jaylen Brown from dunk contests. But Rod, you think that's a good thing he was in there, and I need to know why.
Jaylen Brown almost single single-handedly saved the dunk contest. Okay. You need stars in the dunk contest. I'm sorry. You might not like Jaylen Brown, but that guy's a star. That guy has name recognition. He's been in the finals. He's been in playoff games. He's been
in the
All-Star
NBA.
teams. Yeah, that too. He is a star. He's a name. We all love the glory days of the All-Star slam dunk competition, but guess what? That was Dominique Wilkins and Michael Jordan and other guys that were absolute all-stars, right? Vince Carter, Blake Griffin. These guys were the all-stars. They were cream of the crop. They went on to be Hall of Famers. We don't have that anymore. But Jaylen Brown was the closest we could get, and he went in the dunk contest and he gave it his all. He got booed by the home fans every time he went. His numbers got juiced by the judges, but I don't care, because if Jaylen Brown wins that contest, you can almost save the dunk contest, because people are going to want to come in next year to actually beat a star. Nobody wants to come in next year now to get beat by a G Leaguer.
And Chris, I know you're really against what Rod said there, but he does have a point. Mac McClung is going to go for a three-peat next year. Is anyone going to want to get beat by him?
First off, they should want to dethrone him. If someone is the champion and you're supposed to be a winner and the best in the NBA, you should want to beat the best person at whatever. All right.
He's not the best in the NBA. He's the best in the G League already.
Okay.
Invalid argument.
Yeah. Hold on a second, mister.
Well, no, he's the best. He's the best dunker. He won the slam dunk contest, NBA slam dunk contest. He's the best dunker in the NBA, and he's not even in there. What does that say about the NBA?
Jaylen Brown went out there and did nothing but troll the history of the slam dunk contest. He didn't do anything original. He just dunked everybody else.
Do it well, Chris.
Huh?
I think it was an homage, and he just didn't do it well.
That's why I'm calling it a troll. Like, if you're going to do something, do it right, and not.
We've never seen anybody jump over anybody. Mac McClung invented jumping over somebody. What are you talking about?
Yes, he did.
Yeah. It's so impressive to take an NBA All-Star, jump over a guy who's 5'3" and sitting in a chair versus a guy that's 6 foot jumping over a 7 foot guy. I mean, I guess it's the same. It's not the same. It's the All-Star weekend. It's the best the NBA has to offer. The G League is part of the NBA. I don't care what you have to say. And I don't care if they open up the dunk contest or even additional maybe skills contests to the best in the world. I'm willing to do that. We want to say we have the best in the world. Well, let's open up All-Star weekend, get it a little bit more global. We know the NBA wants to go global. Bring in these world-class dunkers from other countries. We've already had contests in the past in these other countries to find out who the best dunkers are. We know who they are. They can come and get the fans a whole lot more interested and a whole lot more involved in the dunk contest.
So one thing that was positive, I think it was the Steph and Sabrina 3-point shootout there. Sabrina hit as many buckets as Dame Lillard did. She was just going against literally the best shooter in the entire world. I know Kenny Smith got destroyed after that, but I think that
that's part about being
the right direction.
Jimmy?
Step in the right
part
direction.
About being in the building for that was not hearing Kenny Smith. That was the best part about being in the building for that, was I didn't have to hear Kenny Smith. And the biggest juice that popped in that place all night long, to borrow a wrestling term, shout out to Yeah We Know in the Ring with Jimmy, Chris, and Rod. If you love wrestling thoughts, check out the podcast in this very feed. Was when Sabrina came out there, bam, 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 six straight, her first 6 shots, and everybody's, oh my God, here we go. And then she got a little cold there in the middle. Then she heated up in the end, and like Jimmy said, put up the Dame Lillard number. Steph came out, started cold, heated up a little bit, and then you knew he needed a bunch of shots on that last rack, and everybody in the building was like, oh, he's going to hit these. And I mean, it was essentially Larry Bird over there, just swish, swish, swish. And then he walked away before the last one even went in a little bit. It was solid gold. Everybody loved that moment for sure.
And I think that's good. Maybe that's what we expand a little bit more, get a little bit more highlights on the WNBA. Caitlin Clark going to probably be an Indiana Fever next year if she comes out. I think that's going to be a great for the league as well. Our boy Derek in the chat says the difference between Mac McClung and Jaylen Brown is how much is McClung risking doing the dunk contest. That's true. He's not risking anything. If he loses, he's supposed to. If he wins, he is. Jaylen Brown did risk a lot more, which is why, Chris, I think next year you let McClung back in, but then every other participant in every activity needs to be an all-star. I'm sorry. And they have to figure out how to make these people go.
This has been we have always had this in the 3-point contest and the dunk contest, participants who weren't all-stars.
True.
We've always had that going
Yeah.
all the way back. All right.
And,
So it's
and
not
when's the
something
last time
that's-
the dunk contest meant anything? That's the thing. It's like you got to have big names. I understand that McClung's dunks are awesome, but it's not getting the headlines you want, and that's what the NBA needs, especially this year. This was a huge year for them.
When Dominique won his, he wasn't at the superstar level that he turned out to be. He was a star, just like Harold Miner was a star when he won it, but he didn't turn into like a legendary superstar. So we don't talk about
Okay, fine,
him.
but this wasn't your argument a minute ago. Your argument a minute ago was the #1 dunker from Uzbekistan would somehow get everybody in America fired up to see him in the dunk contest.
Your argument was let's have
ago.
NBA players do this thing. You were all for a WNBA player coming in, which is great. Why can't you just go ahead and let the G Leaguers come in and perform in these skills competitions?
Because the contest was set up from the beginning with rules of a WNBA player versus an NBA player. The rules were set up from the beginning that way. So I'm fine with it. The other one's supposed to be the NBA dunk contest. The dude plays for the Osceola Magic.
Yeah, which is an NBA affiliated franchise. Am I wrong?
Affiliate. Yeah. Is that what you want? You want an affiliated slam dunk champion? Good Lord.
I do if he's more exciting than the people the NBA is throwing out there.
He's not that much more exciting. His dunks didn't even look that much more cool than Jaylen Brown's in person. That's the thing, okay? They can break it down and do all this slow-mo stuff for you on TV and show you the above angle and the drone shot and all this, that, and the other. But I'm telling you, in the building, they didn't look that different. You couldn't tell that he did the cool, I threw the ball up in the air and then recaught it. You couldn't see that crap in the building. It didn't matter. But you know what you could see? When Jaylen Brown put on a Mario-sized glove and threw it down with power.
Oh, Chris is so angry right now. Let's talk about champions. Let's talk about me in the wins league. I'm still winning with the exact same amount that I had last week because no games have been played, but I'm still winning the wins league with 299 wins. I'm going for 300. Very excited. I think we can take care of it here. It actually might have already happened tonight for all I know, but very excited about that as well. Chris, do we have a King's Hardwood hierarchy that's different than last week?
The only thing I want to change from, and it's not really a change, it's just like I didn't do the weekly type of thing.
Okay, well, first of all, you watch your mouth because we're doing the song because it's awesome.
It's really just about the gesture, and I want to continue just ripping on the Milwaukee Bucks for how they have handled this season so far. All right. They have won 3 games since Doc Rivers became coach. All right. They have played 12. That's not good. All right. They were doing way better with this other coach that apparently was so horrible that the whole team didn't want to play, but they were winning. So I don't understand what they were doing then, and I still don't think they understand what they're doing now.
Chris King going to JJ Redick.
Doc's only 3-7, Chris. 2 of those losses go to Joe Prunty. All right. How dare you?
I believe if you look, he started January 27th against the Nuggets was his first game, and that was 12 games ago.
All right. Well, we usually have a little bit more, but before we go, there are 5 teams in the NBA right now starting the second half that have plus 2,500 odds or greater to win the NBA Finals. And I want to talk real quick. Who is the team that you think has the best shot of these 5 teams? 5 teams, 2,500 is the lowest, and then it goes up to 5,000, I believe. Yeah, plus 6,000. Okay, ready. We have the Dallas Mavericks at plus 3,500. We have the Golden State Warriors at plus 5,000. We have the Los Angeles Lakers at plus 2,500. We have the Miami Heat at plus 4,000 and the New Orleans Pelicans at plus 6,000. So, Rod, of the Pelicans, Heat, Lakers, Warriors, and Mavericks, who do you give the best shot at winning the NBA championship?
Of those teams, I don't believe in New Orleans' ability to win a close, tight game. They just haven't been in enough of those with this current iteration. I definitely believe in their talent, so I'm putting them out. There's a certain player on the roster in Dallas that just excludes me from being able to count on them whatsoever, so I certainly will count them out, but that's probably just my personal bias there. And as much as I love and want to tout LeBron James at all times, the Lakers scare me as well. So for me, it comes down to Golden State. I think Golden State can still put it all together. I think we're seeing some injection of youth by Podziemski and by who I'm forgetting somebody. Oh, Kuminga. I mean, finally rounding into something. Clay seems to be accepting his role as a bench heater guy, which is probably the best thing that he can do. And I know Chris hates the triple single, but the numbers speak for themselves. Ever since he got back in that Golden State lineup, they've just been a better team. So I like Golden State the best out of all those teams you just gave me.
All right, I just want to let you know that we have had a compliment on fashion on the show. And shocking, I'm not involved. Chris and Rod going old school beanie, showing both their age and their class. Very nice. Thank you, Derek. Chris King, who you got? Lakers, Heat, Mavericks, Warriors, or Pelicans? Who's got the best shot in your mind?
I mean, to me, you have to take one of the two teams that were in the conference finals last year and a team that got to the finals last year. I think I got to stick with Miami in this scenario. I'm going to count out Dallas because they haven't proven really much of anything yet in the playoffs. Who knows what this iteration of them can do? I'm not sold on the Warriors because this is essentially the same team that lost to these same Lakers last year. So I wouldn't take them above the Lakers. So that's kind of what it comes down to.
So you've heard it here first. Chris picks the Miami Heat to win the NBA championship, and Rod picks the Golden State Warriors. Jimmy's going to go off the beaten path here, and Jimmy's going to pick Jimmy's going to go third person. Jimmy is going to pick do I really want to? I really don't want to. I'm not. I'm going to pick the Mavericks. I think Kyrie's going to be on his best behavior the rest of the year. As soon as they win that championship, he's going to ask to be traded, and it's going to be a train wreck. Let's go. I love it.
That is some bad news for Mavericks fan if Jimmy's propensity to curse teams holds true.
I could have gone with the Warriors, and then the whole state of California would have just thrown it. Would never, no downloads from California ever again. But so sorry, Mavs fans. That's me. Although, excuse me, Chris, it's the NBA. Who's winning the Wins League? Who knows what he's doing?
Clip yourself saying that you have trust in a certain player down there in Dallas, Jimmy. Clip yourself saying that, and we'll see if that comes back to haunt you.
And with that, you've been listening to the Fast Break, the fastest, half an hour in the NBA today. Also part of the Balls and Brew podcast. Hey, we've got, we know, Elimination Chamber. We're doing a live. No, we're not. We are not doing a live watch along at 5 a.m. in the morning as opposed to 5 a.m. in the evening. We are not going to do that watch along at all. We will have all of the recap coming up on this Tuesday's live edition of the Yeah We Know podcast.
That's right. Tuesday evening, tune in and you can hear Chris extremely excited when one Scottish warrior reigns victorious in Perth, Australia.
Goodbye, Internet.